Hi, everybody. Welcome to the face of someone who's really overstimulated and has been trawling the internets too late at night. But it might have been worth it because look what the nets brought in today. Uh, I didn't expect to be posting twice in 1 week on this theme, that's for sure. But some stuff is just too good not to talk about. This terrific exemplar packs a 1-2 punch of INFP, so to speak, because it involves not one, but two famous ones. One is a strongly presumed to be INFP actor, and the other one is as close to confirmed as we're going to get, I think, for a public figure, INFP, and that would be Stephen Colbert of the CBS's Late Night with Stephen Colbert show. Early on in his tenure there, Colbert had a certified MBTI practitioner come on and do an assessment with him. And the results of the written part of it, in any case, were that he would identify with INFP. Now, at the time, I don't know about you people, but at the time, I was really surprised by that, just having known about him through his work on Strangers with Candy, and then his several years on the Colbert Report. But as I've seen more and more material from him in his current gig, in which he has been doing, he's been incredibly funny and has had like quite a light touch in how he delivers it, but has been doing some very opinionated, very clear, he's been doing a lot of satire night after night after night that is very clearly critical of the Trump administration. And there's been nothing safe about it, I would say, in the content. It's been really good satire. And the fact that he is, that it is that biting and effective as satire with a very clear point of view to it. It's not in and of itself. It's not an indication for INFP. But let's just say that kind of thing. Let's just say that, and also not to say that, that I think that Stephen Colbert is like, oh, it's all about Stephen Colbert and what he wants to say, and that's what ends up on air. I mean, he's got a team of writers, he's got producers, directors, the network, etc. There are all kinds of inputs into that situation. But I do imagine, as with the kind of stature he has as a comic and writer, and the fact he's the host of the show, that he has some sort of power over, some of the things that get said or how they get said. And as I've seen the kind of stuff he's been doing on there, I thought, let's say that what he's putting out there is not at all incompatible. The sort of strength of it is not at all incompatible with an INFP's dominant introverted feelers, kind of rather passionate and deeply felt and deeply held convictions about certain matters. With a real and a really unabashedly moral angle as well. But again, not in a scoldy, scoldy kind of way, in a really biting, clever, funny satire kind of way. Anyway, so there's Colbert. Now, more about the backstory with him too, is that he's also on record in several places and speaking with journalists as being a devout Catholic. He's also the father of several children. And, I don't know what his sexual orientation is, but it certainly looks like he's got some heterosexual in there at least. And, which is part of what makes this clip, I'm going to link in the description box below from his late night talk show, all the more remarkable, I think. Now, to Garfield, who is the other, the strongly presumed INFP. He's very critically acclaimed actor, super famous at this point, and made a bit more, just a little bit more famous by being part of an extroverted feeling versus introverted feeling segment that is has been very, very widely viewed, and comes from a source that usually is a very good source of information about Jungian typology. But in this particular video, just sorry, by the way, an aside, this particular video, when I saw it, made my jaw drop, because it was kind of the beginning point of me becoming interested in exploring what the differences are in perspective, the profoundly different perspectives that seem to often go with having introverted feeling versus extroverted feeling high up in one's cognitive function stack. This video started that off, because when I saw it, I was like, what the fuck? Like, that was my reaction. To me, it was so obviously and outrageously extroverted feeling biased. But I was like, well, and it was the fact that, and yet it was apparently being seen as this, like, well, of course, as a neutral document, which blew my mind. So anyway, and Garfield is in it. He's featured in this thing. And he is, it seems to me that in that demonstration of extroverted feeling versus introverted feeling, he's being shown to be just such a failure of FE, a terrible, terrible failure. And there's a lot of sort of commentary about his interpretation of his actions as like, just outrageously, just like how outrageously inconsiderate and thoughtless and rude he is as a person, for having the gall to just sit down on a couch just any way he likes, without a thought to anyone else, and then it being compared, I believe, it seems clear to me, unfavorably with a heavy FE using actor who, is obviously superior in her comportment, because she will make a bunch of insincere, ceremonial apologies before, as she's sitting exactly where she wants on the couch, all right, anyway, the sidebar over. All right, so here's Andrew Garfield. So Andrew Garfield, little backstory on this too. So this clip from this interview on the Colbert Show from last January is about Garfield's role as a Jesuit priest. I mean, just to add to this, the whole thing, the layers to this thing, his role as a Jesuit priest in Martin Scorsese's film Silence. So in the clip, oh my God. So in the clip, Andrew Garfield, he seems very friendly, with Stephen Colbert, and they, I don't know. It just, I got the sense clearly from the way they greeted one another on stage and everything, that they've definitely had conversations before, and, probably on the show, and they're pretty comfortable with each other. Well, we find out just how comfortable, and we also find out just how balls out committed they are to going with it, as fellow performers, fellow actors, fellow, terrific improvisers, and being very, very brave about, that. There comes a moment in the clip where the two of them improvise a kiss on the lips, and it's not hurried either. It's not hurried. And it was really, and we just got to see it. I'm putting the link in the description box below. It's incredible. Okay, and here's my backstory a little bit too. All right, it's pretty hard to make me feel prudy. It's pretty hard to shock me, or with sexually related or gay related stuff. I've been an out bisexual for a quarter century. And we'll generally tell anyone who'll listen, about what that's like. And I've been involved in political activism around it and cultural stuff around that and blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, but when I saw this, I was afraid, okay? When I saw this clip, I was like, holy shit, they did not. So they share a tender, not very sexy, but a tender, slow kiss on the lips in the middle of this interview. And then they somehow just go on with the interview. They just go on with the interview. And there's a little bit of blushing. It's an awkward moment. But absolutely fascinating. And I really would put the question to any like tough guys out there, um, would you have the balls to do like if you were in their shoes, with that kind of fame and that kind of that much riding on your public image, and in a political climate in the United States that has never been more, I don't think has ever been more right wing, tending, on the federal level. I mean, would you be able to do such a thing? It was incredible. It's blew my mind. And part of what makes it such a very astonishingly brave thing to do improvisationally is the way that it was a tender one. I would not say sexy, but it was tender. So it was not a like Tony Curtis, Some Like It Hot drag kind of thing, where in which men kissing men is, or the prospect of it is something that's super funny and that actually kind of serves to reinforce, normative gender and sexual orientation roles. This was truly weird. And also in this clip, after this extraordinary kiss, then they move right into, pretty regular interview with Garfield, in which Garfield talks about his childhood a little bit. And he tells this, again, another whopping, astonishing story about what went on between him and a bully. And in which he talks about having had as his hero at age 7, one of the greatest pacifist leaders that ever lived, Mahatma Gandhi, and he explains how that came to be and what that meant to him. So again, like this is the heartless, rude, thoughtless INFP that he is, right? Doesn't give a shit about anyone, clearly, because otherwise he'd be so much more polite. Anyhow, it's an incredible little story as well that he tells, and that is also just intensely INFP. Related to that, I have an INFP friend who, another extraordinary person who told me as well, like something similar from her school experience, in which she went and she knew that a fellow classmate was being harassed by a particular teacher, and I mean, you can imagine how sickeningly nervous this would make anyone, to go and do this, like the kind of bravery it would take to do this. And when you consider again also how very incredibly emotionally sensitive and sometimes shy, not necessarily shy, but sometimes INFPs are. INFPs, they do not, if anybody suffers from the intense stress of conflict of the NFs, who all do, it's an INFP. And despite all that, this INFP I know, and who also had like very high standing scholastically and was kind of was known in her grade for her achievements and her achievement at school. She had the balls to go and or the ovary to go and speak to this teacher that she knew to be abusing another student, and said, I don't like what you're doing. I don't agree with what you're doing. And stuck up for this person. And she was not invited to do so. She felt sick about it. She literally felt like she was going to vomit at any point. That's how upsetting it was and how nerve-wracking it was to confront this abusive teacher. But she felt she had to do it. And it's that heavy FI thing of being stuck between a rock and a hard place, where either you're going to do the thing that is in accordance with your value system, that's terrifying to do and just horrible to do, and then they're going to be awful consequences. It could well be awful consequences to doing, but that is preferable to the hell that you will suffer if you do not honor your value system. So sure enough, she went to confront this teacher. And then the teacher turned on her for the rest of that year, and made her life hell. And knew that she was, didn't want to be, called upon in class, didn't want to be made an example of, the INFPs tend to just hate that. Introverts tend to hate that, But say INFPs, it's just, it's awful, it's awful, it's awful. It's very emotional, because it's not just awful, it's really, 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 really emotionally intense for them. And that teacher really picked on her from then on. But, that's what she did. And again, that's a very INFP move to do. Reminds me of Garfield's story, and her story reminds me of another thing, a really remarkable segment on Talking with Famous People. It was really great. Eric Strauss there, he's, I don't know what that channel's up to lately, but I used to be a big fan and watched quite a lot of it. And Eric would do his brilliant typing sessions with callers, volunteers who would call in. And for, several of those at least, he would use as a way of kind of drawing people out about how they think, how they problem solve. He would use his kind of famous troll example. He'd give someone a problem in which there was this troll that was causing terrible, terrible trouble for a group that the person being interviewed is in charge of. And he'd just want to see, like, what would be your solution to this troll problem. And, it's very, 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 very NT heavy over there, but on that channel. But this time, for a change, there was, it was some viewer who called in who turned out to be an INFP, one of the very few who hangs around in there, or has been on there, I think. And her name was Tippy. And Tippy blew Eric's mind. I mean, it's a delightful segment. I really recommend watching it. It's really interesting. You can tell Eric is just like, can't believe it, It's from sometime last summer. Anyway, so when Tippy's given the troll problem, what's so funny is that, Tippy sounds so gentle and just, she sounds like a nice person, And what blows Eric's mind is that he as he does in this exercise, usually in this typing exercise, when the person comes up with a solution to the troll problem, then he throws like another roadblock to that. And he says, okay, well, that's not going to work. So now what are you going to do? And that then this happens. And that means that your plan isn't going to work. So then what are you going to do? And he just pushes and pushes and pushes this way, anecdotally, until he finds out, until he has a sense of how that person's thinking and making decisions. And what was extraordinary about Tippy's is that more than any other person that Eric had interviewed this way, Tippy, who's like just so gentle and sounding or whatever, was hard fucking core about she would do anything except kill the troll. And so Eric starts laughing at a certain point because he just can't believe it. Like he just keeps putting, yeah, but, or, fail, not going to work. You got to come up with something else. And Tippy would not give up on honoring the ideal of, I'm going to try and think of everything that I can do to solve the troll problem, except kill the troll, which would be the expedient thing to do, would be the efficient thing to do, But I guess according to Tippy, it would be the wrong thing to do. And to see the tenacity with which she would stick to that was, again, and it was an anecdote, but still, I mean, that really, again, I've known a lot of INFPs. I've been close to many of them. And that's very, very INFP typical. These are complex characters, these people who, and while they're very, very passionate, are often not doctrinaire about their beliefs. Doesn't mean they're not fixed and stubborn about them. That's not to say, but I mean doctrinaire, meaning going along with the doctrine. They have their own thoughts, they have their own ideas, their own opinions about things, and if those deviate from any authority, so be it, as far as they're concerned. And who are often very iconoclastic and very fucking brave. Quietly fierce is that, was what I say about them, and it comes to mind again. Now, further to, this is just a little PS to Stephen Colbert, further support, I think, of that assessment being correct in him being assessed as an INFP. So I came across this article on the dailybeast.com that was reporting on an interview with Colbert about his faith. And this is here are a couple of quotes from him from that I thought were really very INFP, again, INFP compatible, shall we say. Strongly, strongly so. During the 45-minute interview, a white-bearded Colbert opened up about the difficulty performing, especially in character. That sense of connection between the performer and the audience is the entire intention, he said. What does anybody want? Not to be alone. And I think when a performer gets on stage and says the things that are in his mind, in his own particular way, it is to make a connection with an audience so he doesn't feel so alone. Colbert told Rosica, the interviewer, representative of the church, that he hopes the audience feels the same way. That's got to be the goal. That connection has to be the goal. And the making somebody laugh has got to be the goal. You can't think that your satire is going to change things. So, and then he goes on to say, when Rosica asked him about making fun of the church, Colbert said he wouldn't stop just because he has a bigger platform. That would be the Late Show that was going to be coming up. This is an interview from 2015. I neglected to mention. Next quote. I mean, I'll still make jokes about the church. I'll make jokes about anything. What was I just saying? But not doctrinaire. I'll make jokes about anything as long as you're not being malicious. Sorry, emphasis by. As long as you're not being malicious, I don't think you can leave anything off the table, Colbert told Rosica. But he would stop short of making jokes about the sacraments. He says, it wouldn't feel right for me. It wouldn't feel good for me. It wouldn't be obeying my own conscience, I suppose, to make jokes about the sacraments. Or specifically the Eucharist. A nacho cheese Eucharist joke. Not. I mean, the church is an important part of my life. I would be crazy if I didn't make jokes about it. That's a smart guy. And I don't know how it could be more, NFP, but particularly I would say INFP, typical what those quotes are. So there you go. The Unvaunted Badassery of INFPs, part 2. Thanks for watching.